Welcome everyone to another of our Wednesday webinar series. Again, I'm Kevin Suarez on behalf of Kara Huntham, fellow Academy Director, Tom Felice, and Alex White, who you just saw with Jocelyn, who's our new boss. Thank you for attending. Today we welcome Erich Simmons, PRO2 referee coach, and also he is the Pro Regional Development Assistant. Erich came up through the ranks as referee, Massachusetts referee, national referee, joining MLS in 1997. Through his tenure in MLS, he was pretty much known as a no-nonsense referee, retiring from MLS in 2006 and became a national assessor. Currently, Erich's work as a Pro Regional Development Assistant puts him in touch with a lot of aspiring officials who want to make it to that Pro MLS level. With the huge changes that have been made over the last several years in terms of expansion of MLS and the supporting leagues, Pro has also changed in order to fit the needs of US soccer, which is why Erich's here today. We'd like to thank our Webinar Wednesday series sponsor, USOfficials.com, for their commitment to referees. US Officials has grown to be one of the largest assigning platforms under a single team in the country and has signaled its intention to give back to referees that it works with. Tomorrow on the New England Premiership Thursday seminar series, we will have Kim Overly, former FIFA assistant referee and one of the best clinicians in the Western Hemisphere. Kim's going to talk about offside considerations, and I strongly recommend that you come and meet. She's really, really good. Next Wednesday, we're pleased to have Kaylee Langevin, former NWSL official and certified dietitian nutritionist. Kaylee's going to be talking about the body's needs as an athlete and official, and answering your questions. This is one of the most neglected aspects of referee preparation, so we strongly urge you to attend. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Erich Simmons. Okay, Erich, go right ahead.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. I just want to say I hope everyone's well and safe during these crazy times that we're faced with. To be honest and quite fair, I never thought that I would see something like this in my lifetime. But here we are, faced with it, dealing with it, staying socially distanced from each other, but also looking at this as a positive thing in regards to what U.S. officials are doing in regards to taking these opportunities to take clinicians and really good instructors that you've had so far to utilize them and implement some of the concepts and some of their experiences into what you as officials here on this website, on this webinar, can take away from it. I know within PRO, with the referees, we're trying to keep them engaged as much as possible. They're doing their own fitness on their side with the sports science, but they're doing a very good job. But that's not why I'm here. But before I get started, I also want to thank US officials for allowing you guys to have these opportunities to put on these webinars. And Kara, Kevin, and Alex and Tom, you guys put on a pretty good show. So kudos to you guys. Well done. So I'll go through a couple slides of what the reason is why I'm here, and we can stop and see if we have any questions, and we'll continue in that manner. Tom is on the call here with us, so it's interesting because he actually has been a guinea pig, shall we say, in regards to going through the process of what PRO2 is. So the reason I'm actually here is because I get a lot of questions when I travel the country. You know, what before PRO2 you were called the development group, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But what we were before was called the development group, and people are always asking, how do I become a professional referee? How do I become a professional assistant referee? You know, how do I get through the ladder or climb the ladder? So let me see if I can click through here. I always ask the question to the people who ask me the question. I kind of put it back on them. So you want to be a professional referee, huh? Or a professional official. I always ask them, do you really know what it takes to become a professional official? Because it's real easy to be sitting in the stands on a Saturday evening in Gillette Stadium, or sitting on our couches on a Sunday afternoon for an ESPN premier game. And, it's so easy to criticize the referees and say, oh, why didn't he move in that position? We get this technical stuff from Feeney all the time, and we should be moving there. They should know that. But there's a lot more that goes into it from just the Saturday or Sunday afternoons when the referees go out to do their performances. So having said that, I want to go through what PRO2 does in the sense of how to get referees and assistant referees ready for MLS or the international board. So let's go through a few clips here. So you want to be a referee. Just before we get started, I always like to give a little history in regards to how the PRO, the Professional Referees Organization, was founded. Way back many moons ago when MLS started, all the assignments for all the games came through US Soccer. And of course, back then, US Soccer had a different logo, as did MLS, as things have changed. But there was always a battle between MLS and US Soccer based on the assignments and who they wanted. It was kind of an interesting dynamic. So what they both did is they collaborated and took a look around the world to see how other countries were implementing the referees into their leagues in a fair and competent way. So when US Soccer and MLS came together, they actually came up with the Professional Referees Organization. And this all started back in 2012 when it first started. And that's the mission statement right there. And what we're trying to do is develop and have the best officiating in North America. And with Pro2, what happened was MLS is growing so fast that just like with the clubs, they have a lot of feeder programs. They have kids coming through the programs from 12 years old all the way up to 18 years old. And what we're trying to do is fill our feeder program for our officials as well. Because believe it or not, we're very top heavy. We have a lot of older officials, very experienced, but we don't have that many people coming in behind them to fill those shoes. So when MLS and US Soccer realized this, what they did is they developed Pro2. Okay. The mission statement for Pro2 is to mainly identify and develop officials. Okay. And that includes referees and assistant referees across the country. At the beginning, we tried to implement some Canadian referees and assistant referees, but Canada is now doing their own thing. So they're no longer part of PRO in Pro2. But the second bullet point of our mission statement is to provide a quality service for the professional leagues outside of MLS. And as we continue through this presentation, I'll go through what those three leagues are, okay? But identify and develop and make sure that we get quality officials is pretty much our underlining mission statement, okay? Those are our two major bullet points. As I gave you a little bit of history of how the Professional Referees Organization was founded, I'll do the same with how PRO became PRO2. It first started in 2017 as the development group. There were just three coaches, myself, Sandra Serafini, and Alan Black. And Alex Pruce was the director at the time. We had 4 tiers, and I'll get into what the tiers were, but the top tier was the elite tier. The elite development was tier 2. The premier tier was tier 3. And we had what was called the training tier. And that was a tier that got officials exposed to what the professional game is. And I'll get into that a little bit more very shortly, okay? So at the end of 2019, with the okay from the PRO board of directors, as well as the general manager, Howard Webb, we decided to rebrand the development group. And the reason for that was because when we were dealing with USL and with NWSL, they kept saying or asking us, why are we having development group officials when we're paying a lot of money for your services? Why are we developing referees? So we came up with, after brainstorming for a little bit, maybe a couple of weeks, and we came up with PRO2. All right. So PRO2 was started early in January in 2020, and that's our new name, and that's our new logo. So before I get started any further, what I want to show is a highlight video of all of the officials who took place last year in all of our games from USLC, USL1, and NWSL.
Victory, your reign is history. Cause we're not stopped until we break through. So take your best shot, make your move. Oh, step right up, who's next? You're messing with the best. Rejected fire, coming in like lightning. Look how we're striking. Ready, set, let's go. This fire's blazing. We're troublemaking. We got you shaking. Ready, set, let's go. Ready, set, let's go. High volts through these veins. Trouble is our game. Keeping aces up every sleeve. Bringing rivals down to their knees. Oh, step right up. Who's next? You're messing with the best. Rejected fire. Coming in like lightning. Look how we're striking. Ready, set, let's go. This fire's blazing. We're troublemaking. We got you shaking. Ready, set, let's go. Ready, set, let's go. Hit 'em up, hit 'em up, hit 'em up. Hit 'em up, hit 'em up. We're testifying, coming in like lightning. Look how we're striking. Ready, set, let's go. This fire's blazing. We're troublemaking. We got you shaking. Ready, set, let's go. Ready, set, let's go.
So I asked that question, do you see yourself on that screen in the near future? If you do, there are opportunities like never before. So I just want you to realize that. Good. Tom, were you on that video? I don't remember if I saw you. Okay, very good. Just checking, making sure you're still paying attention. Good. All right, so I know before on a slide or two just before that, I had showed you what the names of the tiers were. And to be quite honest, they were so difficult for me to remember what the elite development, what the elite was, or who was premier or the training tier. So when we decided to rebrand PRO2 from the development group, we also decided to rename the tiers so that not only simpleton like me could remember them, but it made it nice and easy for everyone else to remember. So what we also did is changed the top tier to be tier A, the tier 2 to be tier B, and so forth, tier C. And what was the training tier is now tier D, okay? To give you some numbers and some statistics of how many officials are in PRO2 as of 2020, there are 161 officials. We have 73 officials in tier D, and of those 73, we have 16 referees and 56 assistant referees. As we climb up that pyramid, as the competition gets higher, we now have 51 officials in the tier C. And that is comprised of 16 referees as well as 37 assistant referees. Again, as we get higher on that pyramid in tier B, we have 24 officials, and of those 24 officials are 8 referees and 14 assistant referees. In tier A, we have 6 referees and 7 assistant referees. All these officials are working hard to climb their way up to the top of the pyramid. And once they break through that window at the top, they're trying to get to Major League Soccer and also onto the international panel. So that is pretty much how the pyramid of PRO2 is broken out in 2020 for right now. So with PRO2, with all those officials, there's a lot behind the scenes that go into it. So I just want to share with you and introduce you to these staff members that are part of our whole team here in Professional Referees Organization. So we start with James Conley. James is in charge of all the assistant referees from tier A to tier B. And that's quite a task, but he has done a great job up to this point. What he also does is go out and scout at various tournaments, which I'll get into in a little bit. But he is in charge of all the assistant referees. And whenever he has an assistant referee that he wants to bring up or wants to move forward, he always runs it by the committee. And it's a pretty good process. I'm going to get into a little bit later what John Westbrooks is all about, our sports scientist. He is full-time with us, and what he does is goes over all of the workouts and training and weights programs with all of the officials in the PRO, all 161 officials. It's quite a task, but he's up to it, and he does a fantastic job keeping our referees healthy, knowing when they need to take a break because they're working too many games, knowing how to let them recover after a series of games and so forth. And he's done a fantastic job. Whenever we're about to assign each week, John is a big part of our assigning call, which takes about 3 to 4 hours. And when we go over all the assignments and before we plug and chug the officials, John gives us a breakdown on a spreadsheet of who's done so many games up to this point, how many games they've done in a certain amount of days, and so forth. So it's really broken down to a science based on our assignments so that we don't overload our officials and get them too hurt. Unfortunately, last year, we had so many games and not enough officials that some people did actually do too much, and we were very cognizant of that. and we're working very hard for not that to happen again. However, with what we're faced with this year, we're not sure what's going to happen, but we'll cross one bridge at a time. I think we all know who Alan Black is. He's head of education, does a fantastic job with the senior officials all the way down to Pro2 officials. He's a wealth of knowledge and does a fantastic job keeping us up with the modern game. Back in November, we needed an administrator within PRO2 because there's just so much going on. So we were able to hire Philip Pruce, Alex Pruce's brother, and he actually does a fantastic job. I think he's a little more coordinated on the computer than Alex himself, but that's to be said later. Also, if you can imagine, with all these officials traveling to all these games, we needed to hire a travel manager. So Diane Johnson helps us not only with the airfare and all the flights, but also she takes care of the hotels. So I'm sure Tom can attest to this. If there's ever a time when a game gets rained out, or if a game gets snowed out, or if for whatever reason a game gets postponed, Diane's at call all the time to make sure that she helps our officials to either get home when they need to, or how they can get to the games, especially in the summertime when we have all those thunderstorms on a Saturday or on a Friday night when we're trying to travel to our games. She's done a fantastic job. Amy Edwards is our video analyst. Amy is a former Division I player. She has also been a Division I coach on the West Coast. She does a fantastic job going over team tactics, spelling out to the officials the low blocks, the high blocks, the pressure, the team tactics on pentagon formations and everything. She is the one who puts together all the scouting reports for each team in USLC and NWSL to help our officials to prepare not only just with the players, but how their tactics are, which is so beneficial because when we have two teams that have high press, we know that there are going to be a lot of breakdowns, as Feeney has talked about in weeks past, and that has to click with the referee's mentality and know when they have to be ready and on their guard to move quickly and show that burst of energy to get to that next phase of play. So Amy does a fantastic job with that. So who is on the committee for PRO2? We'll start with the director. Alex Pruce is the director of the committee. And on the left in the three blue shirts, we have the three coaches, Mark Katalisic of Pro2, myself, and Michael Kennedy. We also have U.S. soccer representation on the committee. Rick Eddy, he's done a fantastic job. He helps bridge us in between U.S. soccer and with PRO. Rick also sits on the board of directors of PRO, and he's done a fantastic job so far for the past 4 years that he's been a part of us. I have 5 officials that I coach in Tier A and B, and I also have 16 of the officials in Tier D that I coach on a weekly basis. So every week I meet with my officials, and I can get into it a little bit later. I know I say my officials because I get very passionate, and between them and myself, we put so much time into it. I kind of take ownership like a father. So sometimes I have to catch myself and say the officials I work with, but they put in so much time and so much effort that I'll show you and explain to you what it is down the road. But those are the officials in which I work with, as Michael and Mark work with other Tier A, B, and C officials. To go back to a little bit of history of the graduates of PRO2, the 5 referees that have come through from the start to finish when the development group first started on the left have all been promoted into Major League Soccer. I was coaching with Mendoza for the past 2 years, and that was fantastic to see one of my babies, shall we say, get up into the next level. Over on the right, we have our 5 assistant referees. I think you guys can recognize the gentleman in the middle, Ian McKay. a homegrown boy who's done a fantastic job as well. So this is evidence that the program is working and that we're able to get the feeder program so that when Howard Webb comes to us, okay, guys, we need another 3 or 4 officials. Who do you got? PRO2 is taking that responsibility and building off of it and getting these officials ready for that next level. And Tom can attest to that for sure. So before I go any further, Kevin, I'm going to open it up for any questions because I've done a lot of talking so far.
Okay, that's actually going to be in Kara's department. He's having issues this week with the unmuting, as you found out earlier.
No worries at all. My wife tries to mute me all the time, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm unmuting my wife. So,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
It's a Verizon commercial.
All right. All right. So we have, first question is going to be Ian Mangione.
Hi, Ian.
Hey, Eric, thank you. Thanks, Kara. Thanks, Kevin, as always. Eric, I was curious to know from your playing day or from your reffing days, if there was something that you learned and experienced at the pro level that you wish you had learned, and now that as a coach and mentor that you could share with us.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I wish the considerations were around when we use the FIFA considerations nowadays in the modern game, that they were spelled out a bit more when myself and some others were coming up through the ranks, because we were going on gut feel based on what we saw, based on what we had. But now with your generation of officials and with the officials in PRO and PRO2, the considerations spell it out so well with the point of contact, the mode of contact, the shape of the player making the challenge. Does the player have the opportunity to play the ball? All these considerations really make a difference when we're coming out with a decision. As before, we're kind of just licking our thumb and seeing which way to go, more so back then. So in that aspect, that's been fantastic. I'm going to explain a little bit more in 2 slides, the technology in regards to being able to go back and look at our performances and break them down, cut video clips, utilize all the tools that are now available that I hate to say it, but we didn't have back when I was coming through the program. And in fact, all my games were put on VHS cassettes. And when we moved a couple of years ago, I had a box of them that I completely forgot about in the attic. And I was all proud and I wanted to show my daughters, hey girls, look, these are all the games that I did on TV. And they go, Dad, what are those things? So those are a couple of things that have changed dramatically, but also the speed and the sports scientists to help with the programs for each individual, because my body makeup is different than Kevin's body makeup than from Tom's makeup. So you really have to know the individual to know what kind of program to put them on to keep them healthy and make sure that they meet their high potential each weekend in out and in. So that too. And then we have a nutritionist at the senior level that hasn't trickled down yet into PRO2 yet. But once that does, and if you guys can take an opportunity to dial in on that next Wednesday webinar, please do so. I highly recommend it, because what we put into our bodies is the same of what we put into our vehicles. If we put in 87 octane all the time and not 93, you're going to get that type of performance. So it's very important. So all these little variables go into the equation to really make a professional referee with the modern game. Thanks for the question.
Next, we're going to have Wendell Ashby.
Hi.
Hi, Eric. Good to see you again. Everybody, thanks for putting this together. This is fantastic. Eric, I think a general question for everybody, sounds like you alluded to, you might address it later, is with the dissolvement of the Development Academy and all those types of tournaments, where would you like to see us put our efforts and time in toward being seen and or scouted, working towards the Pro 2 level?
Excellent question, Wendell. Good to hear from you again. I appreciate that question. I'm going to be frank and honest. Right now, we do not have a clue. There are always some rumors of who or what's going to happen, but until we officially see what gets signed or who, the official announcement gets made, I honestly don't know. And in fact, there's a part of that in the next couple of slides to address that. And I was going to just let you guys know, we're not sure ourselves. But the only thing I can tell you, Wendell, is just keep staying focused during this time off. Keep training, keep watching videos if you can. I know that you're able to talk to Alan a little bit, Chapman. So, pick his brain here and there and see if you can do some workouts with him. Things like that will add up, that will help you be focused so that you're ready to hit the pavement once something does get announced, and we can help point you in the direction at that time. Okay?
Okay, next question is Scarlett Keene. Go ahead.
I don't think I have a question.
Can you make one up?
Scarlett, you asked a question on your registration form about sports
Psychology? Is it that? Okay. Hey guys, good to see everyone. As always, appreciate your time. More or less, since we're going through the quarantine, how do we stay sane? Is there anything you'd recommend reading wise? About sports psychology, and I know it's an up and coming topic, and what would you recommend about it?
Right. So actually yesterday we brought into the senior panel Bob Delaney. He works with Joel Fisher, who's a sports psychologist as well. Bob Delaney is not a sports psychologist. He's an inspirational speaker, but used to be an NBA official as well as an FBI informant. But him and Joel put together a lot of content during this off time, and they actually kind of coordinated or correlated with post-stress disorder syndrome. And there's a lot of similarities. What I can do is give the link to Kara or Kevin, and then they can post it for you of what you can read based on what Joel and Delaney have put together. So I highly recommend going to that website once they post it and read through it, because these are interesting and difficult times, especially trying to stay focused with our jobs and where our jobs are going from here. So I completely appreciate that. And as the Irish say, if your house is not in order, nothing's in order. So how can we referee if we don't know, where we stand with other things? So excellent question. And I will get that information to Kara and Kevin. Thank you.
Okay, next question comes from Matt Graves. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I think my question was kind of along the lines of, as we start to move up the ranks, you start to get those fourth official assignments. Personally, I think I've done over 500 games, but only like 6 or 8 fourth officials. And that just kind of brings sort of unique situations where if somebody argues with you and you're the referee, you can have a quick word and run away or backpedal, or, when you're going back and forth between benches, just sort of, you'll get comments where you can't really, you've just kind of got to stand there and take it. Or if the referee makes a decision that might be questionable, you've got to back him up. Obviously, just sort of strategies for the sort of unique circumstances of being a fourth official. If you've got any input on that.
Yes, that's a fine line for sure. We have to remember that we are mostly there as fourth officials as a soundboard, so that we allow the officials, the assistant referees and referee, to focus on the field and are able to do their job without any interference from the sideline. So now, with the new laws in place, that actually gives us a little more leverage in regards to official warnings, cautions, and send-offs, where when us older people coming up through the ranks, we had those memorandums of ask, tell, and dismiss. but now everything's more in black and white, so you have some more leniency there. However, you still have to approach it the same way. You can't just throw a caution here and there, because then it's the same as if you did that with a player. You give a caution in the 4th minute to a coach, and then now you got the rest of the 86 minutes to deal with. So it's a lot of common sense as well. A solid pregame with officials who have been there, who have done it before, and an experienced referee crew that you work with. If you have the opportunity to do so, I highly recommend picking their brain, asking them what works for you or what has worked for you. And of course, it's not going to be the same for you because your personality is different. But if you could take a trick here or there and implement it into your skills, I highly recommend it. It's 4th official is not easy by any means. And it's so funny because it's the least paid of the 4 officials. So I always gripe to the MLS operations for years, and they finally started to listen with the collective bargaining units. So good question. There's more information out there through US Soccer on protocols and procedures, but if you can sort those out and look those up, that'd be highly recommended. Thank you.
All right, next we're gonna have Adam.
One more question, Kara?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with Adam.
Excellent.
My question was, and I'm sure you're gonna go over it, is on like post-game analysis. So we may look at pros and cons of different post-match analysis, but is there something specific that they're doing within the group that is key to what they're looking at specifically from their game?
Excellent question. Excellent question. So we do have, when referees and assistant referees get officially evaluated or assessed in PRO, we have a matrix. And because I'm a referee coach, I primarily focus on what the matrix are for the referees. And it's all the way from match control, player management, game management, teamwork, positioning, and movement. So when we go, I'll go through this in a little bit in a couple more slides as well. But when I'm working with an A referee or a tier B referee, at the beginning of each season, I put it out onto them to what it is they want to practice for one thing for the whole season. Because sometimes we get overloaded with all those six matrix. If we're trying to work on all 6 matrix at once, and we're in the middle of a game and games going 100 miles an hour, how are we going to remember all that stuff? So when we work on things throughout the year and polish it to the best we can, it becomes second nature. And then we can move on to the next thing that they want to work on. Refereeing doesn't happen overnight. It takes years. It takes a long time and a lot of practice. But we have to remember that we have to have a good foundation, such as the basics. And a lot of referees and assistant referees that I'm seeing in scouting are really lacking in the basics of officiating. So the best thing I can tell you right now tonight is to really hone in on the basics. And I always put that on to officials that are coming through at the first time in PRO2, for them to write out for me, what are the basics? And for us to come together on an understanding of what the basics are. Because, if I asked you that question right now, I'd probably get 600 different answers on what the basics are to an individual when the game's really not that difficult. So I hope I answered the question there. Try and keep it simple. Keep it to 1 or 2 things that you're going to practice on with a mentor throughout the season, and not overload yourself saying, I got to work on positioning movement. I got to work on my player management. And to be frank, player management takes a lifetime to really hone in. And for someone like Alan Kelly, it took him, he's still working on his player management, even if he lies and says he doesn't, because him and I are always talking about it. So just take 1 or 2 things and really work on them, work the heck out of them. I always use the example of Messi. Messi is one of the best free kick taker or dribbler in the final third. And when his club finishes up practice for the day, what is Messi going to go do? He's going to go take more PKs. He's going to take more free kicks and just keep practicing what he's already good at. So sometimes we have to do that too. So if we're really good with foul severity and understanding, maybe we want to just practice going over clips to make sure we understand what is working best for me that I just want to keep practicing on. And that's okay too. So I hope I answered your question there. I know I got kind of long-winded, but that's the gist of it. Good. All right. Let's move on here and we can open up for questions as we get going. So when we're selecting officials, it's done by a committee. It's not one person like the old days, the good old days, where if you knew somebody, sometimes they would let you in, or it was an interesting process. But now it's done by committee and everyone's accounted. When we're dealing with officials inside PRO2, we have officials going up that pyramid in which I showed you based on performances and compliances, and we also have officials going down based on the lack of performances or compliances. What we do is we make this process as transparent as possible, and everybody's held accountable. So it's also on the field stuff, but also off the field stuff in regards to the sports science that John's keeping track of all the time. The reason behind all this is to keep our group competitive. It creates quality, it creates a camaraderie, but also it keeps everyone on their toes and it pushes them to reach for their higher goal. This is a question I always get. How do I become considered as a PRO2? And this is kind of what Wendell was asking just a few minutes ago. I always start with the basics. You have to be registered with your state, and you have to have a legitimate fitness test. I can't tell you how many times we have run into the problem of identifying an official that we want to bring in and look at a particular event, and come to find out they haven't passed the fitness test yet, or they haven't registered with their state in the proper time. Therefore, if they're not registered with US Soccer, we can't even have a look at them. So keep it simple and make sure that you guys do control the controllables, okay? And that starts with being in US Soccer. And this is this presentation was made a couple months ago, as you can see, with the US Soccer DAs, so that's now changed. However, we are still looking at the youth nationals and the amateur finals and amateur regionals as well. So those are ideal events, as well as the NIA tournament that's out here in New England, which is not taking place this year, but that's another event that we actually identified a referee last year who's now in the Tier D group based on being scouted last year. So those types of events, we have coaches that our PRO coaches are there. We have scouts such as our PRO assessors who are working with US Soccer as national coaches. And those are the people who are out looking and trying to identify potential talent. I always say that there are 140,000 officials in the United States, and there are a lot of good ones, but what we're doing is we're looking for the very good ones to bring into PRO2. So the step 3 is once the officials are in PRO2, we assign them to USL-C, which is championship, and USL-1. Now that we have Hartford in USL-C, it's a great opportunity for officials to be seen, but even better now with the revolution in League One. So that's fantastic. Unfortunately, within our area, Boston Breakers are no longer with us, but NWSL is here, and hopefully Connecticut, with the help of Tom Meredith, can get a team going. And as these officials work in these groups, in these leagues for as long as they have, let's say 2 to 3 years, and really work hard, and possibly on the 4th year, they can move up into MLS once we think that they're ready, and Howard comes to us, or Mark Geiger. These are some of the character traits that we're looking for in an official when we're looking for PRO2 officials. The coachability. Is this individual be able to coach? Are they willing to listen? Are they able to adapt to some of the concepts in which we're trying to implement for them? Personality. Do they have personality in the field? And also, do they have personality amongst their peers in the tent or in the locker room with each other? If someone is a negative personality, that we're really not going to consider them for our PRO2. Availability. And this is completely understandable as we get older, when we graduate high school, graduate college, we're always available when we have all that time. But as we also climb that pyramid in our corporate lives or in our professional lives, that our availability sometimes changes, and that's completely understandable. But when you see what takes place in PRO2, the amount of dedication it takes, availability is very, very important. As I said, development, it's very similar to coaching. Over a period of time, are we seeing this individual develop? Yes, then we can keep pushing them. We can keep giving them more difficult games. If an official becomes stagnant and they seem to have hit the ceiling in their performances, there's only so much time and so much money we can invest into them that we may have to shift gears with that particular individual. Administrative factors, that's massive. That's off the field compliances such as self-evaluations, keeping up with John's sports science, as well as making sure that you fill out a proper game report. Believe it or not, I've been going through the reports from last year and dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and I'm amazed at how many reports were not completed correctly at the professional level. So administrative factors are also very important. And also, this sometimes I overlook more so than I should, but just being able to pass a valid fitness test is so important. Because if you can't do it on the track, how are we expecting you to do it on the field? So without a valid or a relevant fitness test, we cannot consider anybody. But that word in blue at the top is the most important, and that's the reason why it's underlined, is integrity. You have to be honest with yourself and honest with us to be able to be considered for the group. And integrity is so, so important at the professional level. So that's why it's in blue and it's underlined. So I figured I'd start with explaining to you what is in Tier D. It's a one-year program. The officials are selected at the end of each year, excuse me, by the committee, and they're started in January. What we try to do is introduce them to the professional level of the game in a way in which we expect the senior referees to approach the game in MLS. And by doing so, we give them as much material, we give them as many tools as possible, such as Team Extreme, and I'll go over that in a little bit. We give them access to Amy Edwards, who has all the scouting reports and is able to give them the team tactics. And they have the one-on-one coachings throughout the year with our coaches. Once the year has finished in PRO2 Tier D, we can never guarantee that officials, once they finish the season, that they're going to move up into Tier C. It's always performance-based, and just as in years past, we've only seen just a handful just move up into it, and sometimes if the officials are not cutting it to what could be the professional level, sometimes they get relegated out of Tier D to Tier D as well, and then that opens up room for more individuals to come in and be tried out in Tier D. So with that, I'll stop there for some more questions, Kara.
Okay, we'll go ahead and grab a couple here, Eric, 1 second.
Nope.
Carry your live.
All right, Emil, you're up.
Go ahead, Emil.
All right, first I want to thank the U.S. Officials Academy for putting this together. Eric, thank you for providing your time as well. The question I have is, it was pretty much answered earlier in the webinar, but you spoke about a lot of matches throughout the season, and then officials being shorthanded on officials. What's the game plan for you guys with that in regard, if there's anything that has been spoken in that? Because it seems like the league is continuing to grow rapidly, and the officials are kind of like being left, needing to be filled up. So what are you guys doing to help scout, more officials for that level of matches?
Excellent question. Yeah, supply and demand. Right now, the demand is outrunning the supply, as you can see, and that's an excellent point. We're doing everything within our power with the budget that we have, with the staff that we have. As you can see, we have quite a bit of staff there that are full-time people, and that in itself is a lot of money. Also, to give the education and all the platforms that we use, such as ProSphere, which allows the officials, I won't go down that rabbit hole. ProSphere is a massive platform where we do all our travel, we do all our events planning through that, we do all our assessing, we do all our assigning. It's a platform that Dr. Sandra Serafini had put together with the help of Josh from Team Extreme to put all this together so that we're all in-house kind of platform. But to answer your question, it's we're working our tails off, and we need you guys to do the same in regards to keep working on the basics and keep putting yourselves out there in these particular events once we figure out which ones those are going to be now. Thank you. One more question, Kara?
Sure. Nick Karnofsky.
Hi, Eric. Good evening. I've got a
evening.
question that I think is not a new question to this sort of type of conversation, but something that I think is relevant to bring up again. And I'm just curious how this new PRO2 ladder sort of syncs with the U.S. soccer, regional to national progression.
Sure. So the past 4 years, we've been working hard with Rick Eddy, and it's a valid point because when the development group first started, we were putting a lot of stuff together that wasn't adding up, and there was no clear path on how to get into the professional referees organization. But just in the past 2 years, with Rick Eddy working as hard as he can, and us working with him, we now have put together a path. So when referees for 6, 7s, or 5s come to me and say, how do I get into Pro2? The first and foremost thing I have to tell them now, the clear path is, please just focus on becoming a national referee. And then that makes you eligible for becoming looked at to come into PRO2. Now, there are always exceptions to the rule, but that is for the most part, the clearest way to answer that question is just keep focusing one game at a time. Work on that particular basic that you are going to work with with your mentor, and let Rick Eddy know, let your SRA know, let your mentor know that you really want to climb the ladder, and that will put you on the radar and get yourself looked at. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent. Good question, though. Good. All right, Kara, I'm going to get going again now that I think I got that frog out of my throat.
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent. All right, so with the officials who were identified already for the PRO2 in 2020, they must have attended the MLS camp, which was in January in Houston, for the A's and B's, or the season D's attend the camp in Dallas, which was the PRO2 camp. So they got a full weekend of education of what PRO is expecting from them. The officials that are in PRO2 this year must attend a monthly webinar. Their attendance is taken. And again, that's one of the compliances that must be met. So at the end of the year, if we have an official who is tied with another official but has missed 2 webinars, that is one of those things that we're going to use to help make our decision when we come down to numbers. I myself put together a weekly webinar for game preparation for my tier Ds. to get ready for, let's say they have a USL 1 game, and we go over not what the tactics are of the team so much, but what their plans are going to be going into the game. So what does that mean? That means knowing the matchups, knowing what to expect before it happens so that they have a plan A, B, and C, so that there are no unexpected situations and they mentally already practiced what they're going to do when a particular player does it because it's done their homework. I remember coming up to the ranks, some of the staff at US Soccer would always say, well, expect the unexpected, and we'd be saying, you know, what is that? But now on a weekly basis, on a pregame webinar, we go over the plans in which the referees and assistant referees have to develop going into their games and be ready for it. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of homework. It's a lot of researching the video clips through the Team Extreme, watching the games before, going through Amy's notes, going through all the scouting reports on every team. So they have to be prepared, and we come up with a plan how they should go about going into that game. And then with the tier C's and B's and A's, we do a weekly webinar going over last week's game for 15 minutes, going over, then practicing for 5 minutes what it is that we're practicing for that year. And then we'll go through a little bit of game prep for the upcoming game. And again, just continuing the sport science, the officials have to meet the recommendations of what I'm putting forward so that at the end of the year, the referee may have a fantastic season on the field, but has not complied with all of John's stuff, and he's competing with another official. You know, those are the variables that go into the equation. Sometimes does not allow an official to either move up or get relegated. This is the platform that I was talking about. It's a Team Extreme. As you can see, it's a video, and on the right, all those colored buttons are pretty. I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but you're able to clip whatever it is you want to clip. So we have fouls, cautions. My glasses aren't working too well. Send off button, player management, referee positioning, movement, assistant referee buttons. So when an official goes back and looks at their game on Sunday or Monday after a Saturday or Friday game, they have this tool to cut as many clips as they want. Now, Amy Edwards will cut about close to 200 clips a game just on team tactics that she implements every single game in USLC as well as NWSL. But we put this onto the officials, both the referees and assistant referees, to cut their clips so that when they go back and do their self-evaluation, they put into their self-evaluation the URL to that clip. So when I'm going through before one-on-ones on that particular week, I can just click on the URL and go look at what they're talking about in their self-evaluation. In years past, I'd have to go through the whole entire clip, the whole entire game, minute by minute, go through it. Not to mention, I already watched the game once, so I have my notes on every single game, but they might be talking about something different, and then I have to go back and look at it. With this technology, it's fantastic for the self-evaluations, but also between Alan Black and us coaches, we're able to pull out clips and put together the education for the monthly webinar, depending on what is the pattern that we're seeing continually to come up. So I know I've talked a lot right now, but when at the end of the year with all these officials working so hard, just like the teams, they get rewarded. So when it comes to playoffs, we select the best officials who have worked all season, both on and off the field. And they've met all the compliances, and it's just like the teams. I said they must work hard to advance, just like the teams into playoffs. So I'm just going to let you see the officials from last year in PRO, well, as the development group, work the NWSL games, and I'm going to go over some statistics after.
patience. I wanna walk a little bit taller on me. I wanna feel a little bit stronger on me. I wanna think a little bit stronger. Said I just wanna be the best. I wanna walk a little bit taller on me. I wanna feel a little bit stronger on me. I wanna think a little bit stronger. Said I just wanna be the best. So fix my face up with diet glue and science fiction. I wanna walk a little bit taller on me. I wanna feel a little bit stronger on me. I wanna think a little bit stronger. Said I just wanna be the best. I wanna walk a little bit taller on me. I wanna feel a little bit stronger on me. I wanna think a little bit stronger. Said I just wanna be the best. I wanna walk a little bit taller on me. I wanna feel a little bit stronger on me. I wanna think a little bit smarter. Said I just wanna be the best. I wanna walk a little bit taller on me. I wanna feel a little bit stronger on me. I wanna think a little bit smarter. Said I just wanna be the best. I just wanna be the
So all those officials were in PRO2 last year, or what was the development then? I'm just going to quickly through these because we're starting to have time here. Out of 111 NWSL games last year, there were 213 cautions given. So you can see it was just about 2 cautions a game. All those games were watched by one of 4 of us from the coaching staff. All the games were observed, and all this data came from either ourselves or the assessors through the program in PRO. So ironically, only 1 was incorrectly given, but you can see 27 cautions were missed. So that averages out to about just a 4 games that were missed in cautions. When we're dealing with send-offs, out of the 111 games, there were 8 send-offs given throughout the whole season, which was kind of low, less than a game, throughout the game. There were no incorrect send-offs given. However, there were 5 missed send-offs. So with this data we used, we peel back the layers of onion and to see what it is that those missed send-offs were. And a couple of them, if I remember correctly, were the misapplication of or the misunderstanding of the foul severity. So that steers our education within PRO2 going forward. Okay, so here's USLC. I'm going to skip the video, so Tom might not be in this one. So I apologize, Tom, because we're running out of time. But out of USL Championship, we had 585 games, and each and every one of them were watched by a coach. There were 2,288 cautions given. We averaged close to 4 a game. Out of all those games, there were only 26 cautions incorrectly given. And again, that goes back to misapplication of possibly stopping a promising attack or a lack of respect or not understanding the difference between careless and reckless. However, there were 169 cautions that were not given. So therefore, we had to go back and break down the data from within to see what was being missed and why were we not missing, why were we not given those cautions based on what we were looking at. Similar to what I just spoke about with possible stopping a promising attack and not understanding the severity of the offense. Okay. Send-offs, out of the 585 games, we had 149 given, and there were only 7 that were incorrectly given. So sometimes the referee went a little bit stronger on the red card than what the challenge may have needed. And so that's where that statistic possibly came from, or misapplication of dog soap potentially, or violent conduct. Well, however, this next number was really startling. We had 58 missed send-offs where they did not, the officials did not understand and did not rise up to the moment of truth in the game. And that was concerning. And then we took that data and steered it towards the education for the start of 2020. So when officials miss cautions or do not give cautions or miss send-offs and don't give send-offs, they have to deal with the boss, Alex Bruce, and that's his not happy face. So I always put this on my screen when I do my one-on-ones, and I always say that the boss is not going to be happy. So having said that, from last year in USL, we had Referee of the Year Guido Gonzalez, who's now in the probationary stage of refereeing in MLS. And we also have Ian McKay, who is also now been moved up as probationary assistant referee in Major League Soccer. And he was awarded the Assistant Referee of the Year last year in 2019 in USL. So fantastic to see a homegrown guy do it. And the opportunities are there for everyone. League One, I'm going to skip through this playoff clip because there's not much time left. However, if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me, but I also want to direct you to theprofessionalreferees.com. And once you get to the website, you can see the tab that says PRO2, and please click on that. And that should help answer more questions if I was not able to cover it tonight. And there's an opportunity to reach out and send a message, or if you have a question to that particular tab, that you can do so from there. But before I finish and we have open up to a couple more questions, with all this had been said, what we do week in and week out throughout the year, every single weekend, we work really hard, both the officials and the staff. But when we have moments that we can laugh, or we can have moments where we can let our hair down a little bit, we have fun. We really do have fun. And that's the bottom line on why we do this. Yes, it's professional soccer, it's professionalism, but every once in a while you have to have fun. So, a couple of us put this movie together so that we could have a laugh at ourselves and to let others see that we do all make mistakes, and that's part of growing and that's part of learning. So please enjoy this video, and then we'll open it up for questions, okay?
Friends are happy for me, or their honeysuckle phonies. Can they celebrate my medals, or they wanna take my trophies? Some are loyal soldiers, while these other thorns are rosy. And if you never know who you can trust, then trust me, you'll be lonely. Oh, are you ready for the sequel? Ain't ready for the latest. In the garden of evil, I'm gonna be the greatest. In a golden cathedral, I'll be bringing with the papers. And if you lose, boo. Hey, look, Ma, I made it. Hey, look, Ma, I made it. Everything's coming up pieces, pieces. If it's a dream, don't break it, don't break it. I said, hey, look, Ma, I made it, I made it. I said, hey, look,
Kara, we can have 2 more questions. That'd be fantastic.
All right. So Maria, you're up.
Hi, thanks for for hosting this and for speaking with us today. So my question was geared towards thinking about your personal professional development versus your referee professional development. I'm a medical student, and I was just curious to thinking about, I guess, what age do people tend to be when they are applying to be in pro? And is there age consideration and or like experience consideration when you guys are looking at these professional referees or these potential pro referees?
Excellent question. What I tell the officials I work with all the time, whether they're in PRO2 or if they're up and coming, there are 3 orders in which we have to keep things in perspective. The first one is what we're faced with right now is family. Family is first. Without family, we cannot do anything as far as I'm concerned. Number 2 is work or school. So if we do not have contracts in our hands and we're not part of the CBAs or the PSRA, you really have to have another job. And a lot of our referees or assistant referees in PRO2 have flexibility to be able to travel to camps, to games, to do all the training, to do the education. So they're able to do that based on their schedule. But I keep telling them, until you have that contract here, please do not screw up your school or your profession at your job. I've seen coming up through my era of officials, a lot of referees sacrificed a lot of family time and a lot of professional time, and they lost either their own cell phone businesses or they've lost their contracts with sales or what have you. So after those 2 have been met, 2 criteria, that the third is this silly thing called refereeing or officiating. If the first 2 are not in order, then you cannot do the third. So you've got a good situation there with your school. So I really wouldn't want you to take your eye off the ball. But when you feel comfortable that things are sorted out in your profession, no matter what it may be, law school or engineering or anything for that matter, becoming a teacher, please don't take your eye off the ball, because it's a lot more difficult to go back than it is to go forwards. So I hope that answered your question.
Yep. One more, Eric?
Sure.
All right, Ryan Block.
So I noticed while watching some USL Championship games that some referees wear a pro badge and while others wear a US soccer badge. Are there any like determining factors about which badge they wear?
Yeah. Yep. And in fact, we just got our PRO2 badge, so it's going to be just like the senior badge, but there's going to be a 2 underneath the O, or excuse me, underneath the R. So when you see the officials, I think it's John Freeman, Malik Badawi, and Mariscal. Those 3 officials who are in PRO2 are bargaining unit members because they're in the VAR side of the BU membership. So that enables them to, because they are part of the CBA or the PSRA in with the VAR section of the BU members, that they're allowed to wear the pro badge as of now. But all other officials have to wear the US soccer badge until we get them the PRO2 badge once they've made it into PRO2. Excellent. All right, Kara. Well, I think that's all I have to say for tonight, but I'm sure there's always more questions and I would like to answer them all. Maybe if you can point them into that PRO.com website and with that PRO2 tab, and they can send their questions there and we'll try and answer them as quickly as possible. But I want to thank you guys again for the opportunity to take time, shed light and give them a taste of what the next step is if they want to take it to becoming a professional referee.
Thank you immensely, Eric. We really appreciate your time and effort in this entire process and kind of demystifying the steps taken to MLS. So no, thank you immensely. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we can have you back soon.
Excellent. Maybe next week?
That will be fine. We'll do that.
Excellent. Good.
You
Look
can talk
forward
about
to it.
England.
Everyone, please stay healthy and stay fit, because when the season comes, we need to hit the road running, okay? All the best, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Eric.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go to our Kahoot, to Tom Felice.
Thanks, Kevin. And we're going to get the Kahoot started as we continue to keep track of our standings and lead up to the grand prize. So if you haven't played Kahoot before, it's pretty simple. Go to kahoot.it or on the Kahoot app and enter this PIN. Please use your real name if you want to be considered for the prizes. There will be a prize for the winner of tonight's quiz and the overall winner. How you play, it's very simple. A question will show up on your screen, on the screen with the PIN number, and then the 4 answers will show up and you answer on your separate device. A couple of the questions were things that Eric went over during his presentation, so hopefully you were paying attention. Gonna give everybody another minute to check in. Once again, kahoot.it, and then enter this PIN. And in case you thought Eric was lying about how long I've been in the pro ranks, it says 2018. You can't read it, but it says 2018 if you just gotta look at the quarter zip I've got on for this one. So got time for a few more people to sign in if they would like, and if not, we'll get going with the quiz. All right, let's get started. So the first question, one of Eric's favorite movies, this film is set on Amity Island. Is it Caddyshack, The Hunt for Red October, Jaws, or Fargo? It is Jaws. You have not lived until you've talked to Erich Simmons about a shock attack, as he would call it. Drew is our leader after the first question. Number 2, what is the sanction if a team official deliberately throws or kicks an object onto the field? No sanction, a warning, a yellow card, or a red card. Red card. Majority had it correct. That is one of the law changes for this year, or for 2020, about cards given to team officials. Drew still in the lead. Michael Pullen in just a second. Question 3. Who is not a match official pictured here alongside Eric? Adam Wienkowski, Alex Pruce, Abby Okalaja, or George Vergara? I'll also mention that I took a long time yesterday trying to figure out who the FC Dallas player was, and he's a guy from Finland. And the answer is Alex Pruce. Adam and George were the ARs. Abby was the referee for that game. Eric was the 4th official for the match pictured. And we saw Alex's upset face earlier. I'm sure he had a different game that day. Danny into the lead with Andrew Parada. in second. How far must players be from a dropped ball? 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters, or 5 meters? This was, once again, a law change. And everybody entered. And the majority had the correct answer of 4 meters. Still Danny in the lead. Which shape is used to illustrate the referee development pathway? A pyramid, rhombus, trapezoid, or hexagon? It is a pyramid, even though sometimes it can feel like a hexagon or a circle even. But as Eric mentioned, we do talk about the pyramid. Danny in the lead, Ryan Block in second place. What was Pro2 called before its recent name change? Was it the Select Group, the Development Group, Pruce's Posse, or the Pro Referee Academy? It was the Development Group. That was the official name before the change. No change in the standings. At a penalty kick, what is the restart if a goalkeeper commits an offense and a goal is scored? Do you retake the kick, award an indirect free kick, restart with a kickoff, or a dropped ball? You do restart with a kickoff. If the goalkeeper commits an offense and the ball goes in, you count the goal. And Danny is still in the lead. Katie McCormick into second. So we're going to get into some Pro2 officials. Who was the referee for the 2019 NWSL final? Kevin Broadley, Danielle Chesky, Karen Apt, or Rosenda Mendoza? So video highlights from that game in Eric's presentation. It was Rosendo. Kevin Broadley was the fourth official. Danielle Chesky had one of the semifinals. Katie into the lead with Steve in second. 2 more questions. What is the restart if a spectator blows a whistle and it interferes with play? Indirect free kick, dropped ball, direct free kick, or abandon the match? There is no option to have them replace the referee if they blow the whistle better. It is a dropped ball. Katie still in front with 1 more question to go. Who was the referee for the 2019 USL Championship final? Tim Ford, Rami Touchon, Joe Dickerson, or Rubiel Vasquez? It was Tim Ford. He had the 2019 final between Real Monarchs and Louisville City. And we'll take a look at our standing. Third place, Ronnie Tamburo. Katie McCormick, second. And Steve Malacaria is our winner. Ryan Block in fourth and Danny G in fifth. Congratulations to everyone as we continue our U.S. Officials Referee Academy Kahoot standings. And now I'm going to toss it over to Alex, and she's going to have a different type of quiz.
All right, thanks a lot, Tom. So every week on Wednesday, guys, we try to play a second game just to get more prizes and more chances to win things. So today, we were lucky enough to have a quiz sent to us from Eric. And so although it's a quiz, it's kind of different from what we were just doing with Kahoot. So on this, you kind of take your time. We will be doing a prize. It adds up to your total points for the end. So if you get more points. And then more of a review, it's not so much the fastest person, it's who gets the most questions correctly and such. So you can go to quizzes.com /join, or you can use that QR code to connect. You will need a code to join. You do not need to make an account. You don't need to download anything. So it is quizzes.com /join. And in a minute, I'll give you the code. The code will be available through tonight. So we're going to do this for a little bit. And then if you don't have a chance to take it or to finish it, you can finish it later on. So so here's the code to join. It is 798-303. Once you put your name in, you can get started. Sure. If you aren't on the website, it is quizzes, QUIZIZZ.com, or the QR code. And the code number is 798-303. Kevin, do you want to put that information in the chat, and then you can go to the montage if you want, or do you want me to post up?
Sure, we can go ahead and go to montage if you'd like. And that game will be live, I'm assuming, right now?
Yeah, it should be live right now. I guess I don't really have anyone in there as I'm looking, but let me see. Can I? Has anyone tried it? Do I have any thumbs up on if it's working? Thumbs up. Okay, cool. Yep, so everything's fine. I'm trying to get it up here, Kevin, but honestly, I can't see it. I don't know why.
We'll go ahead and do montage. Thanks again for everyone for coming on. Tomorrow, again, we're going to have Kim Oberle, former FIFA assistant referee, and arguably one of the best clinicians that I have seen around dealing with offside considerations. Next Thursday, we will have Eric back talking about handling. With the changes in handball and handling, we're going to have him on to discuss that. Again, from the entire crew on this side of the Referee Academy, Tom, Alex, Kara, and myself, thanks again, and have a great night. Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Have a good day.